Christmas is family only, Dad texted. Your sister's in-laws are executives. We can't have you there. I stared at my phone screen in my corner office 43 floors above downtown Seattle. Behind me hung my Fortune magazine cover featuring my face as the youngest tech CEO to revolutionize artificial intelligence logistics. The irony burned like acid in my throat. My family thought I was a broke computer repair guy, living paycheck to paycheck. They had no idea I was worth $400 million. I set my phone down on the mahogany desk and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The December afternoon light filtered through gray clouds, casting shadows across the headquarters of TechFlow Solutions. 3,000 employees worked in this building alone, spread across 12 floors of cutting-edge technology development. Another 9,000 worked in our satellite offices from Portland to Miami. None of it mattered to Frank, my father, who still believed I fixed broken laptops for $25 an hour. The deception had started 5 years ago, right after I graduated from Stanford with my computer science degree. Frank had laughed when I told him about my business idea during Thanksgiving dinner. Artificial intelligence for supply chains? That's science fiction nonsense, Braeden. You need to get a real job before you end up homeless. My mother, Carol, had nodded in agreement, suggesting I apply for entry-level positions at the local electronics store. So I'd let them believe what they wanted. When TechFlow landed its first major contract with a regional shipping company, I kept quiet. When we expanded to serve Amazon's Pacific Northwest operations, I stayed silent. Even when Fortune magazine put me on their cover last year as one of the 40 most influential business leaders under 40, I never said a word to my family. Instead, I had maintained an elaborate facade. During family visits, I drove my old Toyota Camry from college and rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment across town. I wore thrift store clothes and complained about difficult customers and late rent payments. The performance had become so natural that sometimes I almost believed it myself. My sister Sarah had married Tyler Hartwell 2 years ago, and their wedding had been the most painful performance yet. While she bragged about Tyler's family owning Hartwell Industries, some traditional manufacturing company I'd never heard of, I had sat in the back corner pretending to nurse a beer I couldn't afford. The entire Hartwell family had treated me like furniture, barely acknowledging my existence, except to make polite small talk about my computer repair business. The real kicker was that during the reception, Tyler's father, William, had cornered me near the bathroom and offered unsolicited career advice. "Young man," he had said, adjusting his cufflinks, "there's real money in manufacturing. If you ever want to leave that computer hobby behind and learn a trade with actual value, I might be able to find you something in our shipping department. Starts at $18 an hour, but it's honest work." I had thanked him politely while mentally calculating that TechFlow's annual revenue was approaching $200 million that year. But the loneliness was crushing me. I spent holidays in my penthouse apartment ordering Chinese takeout and watching movies while my family gathered around Carol's dining room table, 30 miles away in Bellevue. I had friends and business associates, but none of them knew about the secret I kept from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Sometimes I wondered if I should just tell them the truth. What stopped me was remembering Frank's voice during my college years, constantly reminding me that I was too impractical, too focused on fantasy instead of reality. "Technology changes every 5 minutes, Biddy," he would say. "You need skills that last. Learn plumbing or electrical work. Something people will always need." The text message today felt like the final confirmation that I had been right to keep my success hidden. Even with Tyler's family connections, even with Sarah's constant social climbing, they still saw me as an embarrassment. Someone whose presence would somehow diminish their standing with the important executives who mattered. I walked back to my desk and pulled up Monday's schedule on my computer. Most of my afternoon was blocked out for a high-priority partnership meeting. Amanda, my executive assistant, had marked it as urgent, noting that the prospective client was a traditional manufacturing company seeking digital transformation services. The folder contained preliminary financial data, but no company name yet. My business development team had insisted on maintaining confidentiality until the initial meeting. The timing was interesting. We had been looking to expand our manufacturing partnerships, especially with established companies that needed modernization. Our AI logistics platform could typically save large-scale manufacturers between 30 and 60% on supply chain costs while improving delivery speed by 40%. Companies that implemented our systems properly often saw profit increases within the first quarter. I glanced at the text message again. Family only. As if blood meant nothing compared to business connections and social status. As if 32 years of being Frank and Carol's son counted for less than 2 years of being Tyler's brother-in-law. My intercom buzzed. "Mr. Patterson, your 4 o'clock called to confirm tomorrow's meeting." Amanda's voice came through clearly. They seemed very eager to move forward with preliminary discussions. "Thanks, Amanda. Do we have the company name yet?" "It should be in your updated folder by end of day. Mr. Rodriguez from Business Development wanted to brief you personally before the meeting." I leaned back in my leather chair and looked out at the Seattle skyline again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to build something meaningful. Tonight, I would go home to my empty penthouse and try not to think about Carol's Christmas cookies or Frank's terrible jokes or the way Sarah used to sneak me extra dessert when we were kids. But first, I had 3 hours of product development meetings and a conference call with our London office. Building an empire, it turned out, required constant attention, even when your family didn't know you had built anything at all. Sunday evening arrived with the familiar weight of loneliness that always preceded family holidays. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office when my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, and for a moment my heart lifted. Maybe she was calling to invite me over anyway to tell me the Christmas ban was just Dad being dramatic. "Braeden, I hope you got Dad's message and you're not upset about Christmas." Her voice carried that artificially sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "I got it," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "You're probably right that it's better if I'm not there." "Oh, good, you understand. I was worried you might make this difficult." She sounded relieved, which should have been my first warning. "The thing is, Tyler's family is really important to us right now. His father, William, runs Hartwell Industries, and they only associate with successful people. I couldn't risk having you there and making our family look, you know." The words hit like a physical blow. Making us look what exactly? "Well, Braeden, let's be honest. You're 32 years old, and you still repair computers for a living. You drive that beat-up car, and you're always behind on rent. Tyler's family are executives. They have standards." I set down my pen, carefully fighting to keep my voice steady. "What exactly did you tell them about me?" "Just the truth. That you're a freelance computer repair guy who lives paycheck to paycheck. I mentioned that you've had some financial struggles and relationship problems. Nothing mean, just facts. Relationship problems. You know how you never seem to keep a girlfriend for more than a few months. How you had to move back in with Mom and Dad briefly after college. Normal stuff that happens when someone doesn't have their life together yet." The lies were so elaborate, so detailed, that I realized this wasn't a recent decision. Sarah had been constructing this narrative about my failures for years, feeding it to Tyler's family piece by piece. "I see, and Mom and Dad agreed with this assessment." "They understand the situation, Braeden. This isn't personal. Tyler's father is considering some big business opportunities, and first impressions matter. We can't have someone there who might say or do something embarrassing." "Something embarrassing like what?" "Like talking about conspiracy theories or complaining about money problems or asking to borrow cash. You know how you get sometimes." I had never done any of those things, but arguing seemed pointless. Sarah had created an entire fictional version of me, and apparently everyone had bought it completely. "Here's what I don't understand, Sarah. If I'm such an embarrassment, why are you calling to explain? Why not just let Dad's text speak for itself?" "Because I care about you, obviously. and I wanted you to know that this isn't permanent. If you get your act together, find a real job with benefits, and maybe a steady relationship we can talk about, including you next year. Tyler even said he might be able to help you find something entry-level at his company if you're willing to start at the bottom and work your way up. The condescension in her voice was breathtaking. My own sister was offering to help me find an entry-level job at a company that would probably be bankrupt within 2 years, based on what little I knew about traditional manufacturing economics. That's very generous of Tyler. He really is wonderful, and his family has been so good to me. William took us to the country club last weekend and introduced me to some very influential wives. Carol Morrison, who organizes all the charity galas, actually asked for my number. These are connections that could change our whole family's future, Braeden. I hope you understand why I have to protect them. In the background, I could hear Tyler's voice saying something. Then the phone changed hands. Braeden, this is Tyler. Look, man, I want you to know this isn't about not liking you personally. You seem like a decent guy. It's just about maintaining certain professional appearances for my family's business relationships. Nothing personal. Of course not, I said. Business is business. Exactly, and who knows, maybe this will motivate you to make some positive changes. A little career ambition never hurt anyone, right? The phone went back to Sarah. See, Tyler doesn't have anything against you. He's actually trying to help. We all are. And Mom and Dad feel the same way. Well, Mom wanted to call you herself, but I told her I would handle it. She feels bad about the timing, but she agrees it's probably for the best. She said maybe you could use Christmas Day to work on your resume or take some online courses. Something productive. As if I didn't have a Stanford degree. As if I hadn't built a company from nothing into one of the most innovative tech firms on the West Coast. What about Dad? Dad thinks this might be the wake-up call you need. He said maybe if you see how successful people actually live and work, it'll inspire you to aim higher. He's not trying to be mean, Braeden. He wants what's best for you. Which is what exactly? Stability, a real career. Maybe settle down with someone nice who can help you stay motivated. Tyler has a cousin who's looking to get married. She's not picky about income as long as the guy has potential and a good work ethic. If you clean up your act, I could introduce you. I looked out the windows of my penthouse at the lights of downtown Seattle spreading out below like scattered diamonds. My home office was larger than the apartment I pretended to rent for family visits. The monthly maintenance fee for this place was more than most people made in a year. That sounds like a great opportunity, Sarah. I'll definitely think about it. Good, and Braeden, I know this is hard to hear, but your family. We want you to succeed. Sometimes caring means having difficult conversations. After she hung up, I sat in the silence of my home office for a long time. On my desk sat 3 urgent emails about Monday's partnership meeting. The subject lines mentioned Hartwell Industries specifically for the first time requesting detailed financial projections and transformation timelines. My Chief Operating Officer, David, had marked the latest message as high priority, noting that the client was desperate to move forward quickly due to serious financial challenges threatening their company's survival. The irony was so perfect, it felt like fiction. Tyler's family, the successful executives who were too important to meet me, were apparently about to beg my company to save them from bankruptcy. William Hartwell, who had offered me $18 an hour to work in his shipping department, was probably losing sleep wondering if Monday's meeting would determine his company's fate. I opened my laptop and pulled up Hartwell Industries' public financial records. The picture they painted was worse than I had imagined. Revenue had declined 30% over the past 3 years. Their supply chain inefficiencies were costing them approximately $15 million quarterly. Without significant modernization, they would be out of business within 18 months. And apparently, I was too much of a failure to sit at their Christmas table. Tomorrow's meeting was going to be very interesting indeed. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear with Mount Rainier visible through the downtown Seattle haze. I reached my office at 6:33 hours before the Hartwell Industries meeting, needing time to process the full scope of what I was about to walk into. The elevator ride to the 43rd floor gave me time to think. When I had started TechFlow Solutions 7 years ago, working 18-hour days in my Stanford dorm room, I had dreamed of moments like this. Major partnerships with established companies, the chance to prove that artificial intelligence could revolutionize traditional industries. I just never imagined the personal complications that would come with success. Amanda was already at her desk when I arrived, holding a stack of briefing materials that looked thick enough to choke a horse. "Good morning, Mr. Patterson. Your team has been here since 5 preparing for the Hartwell meeting. Mr. Rodriguez says the situation is more urgent than they initially indicated." I took the files and headed into my corner office, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. The morning light illuminated the Fortune magazine cover, hanging on the far wall, next to framed photos from various industry awards ceremonies and a letter from the president thanking TechFlow for our contributions to American technological leadership. My desk phone buzzed within minutes. "Braeden, we need to talk before this meeting." Carlos Rodriguez, my head of business development, sounded stressed. "I've been digging deeper into Hartwell Industries' situation, and it's worse than we thought." "How much worse?" "They're hemorrhaging money. Outdated inventory systems, manual supply chain management, zero automation in their manufacturing processes. They're operating like it's 1995 while their competitors are using cutting-edge technology. If they don't modernize immediately, they'll be forced into bankruptcy by next summer." Carlos appeared in my doorway, carrying a laptop and looking like he hadn't slept. "The really interesting part is that they specifically requested this meeting through back channels. Usually companies their size go through our standard sales process, but William Hartwell called our board member Patricia Chen directly and begged for an emergency consultation." Begged? His exact words, according to Patricia, were that his company's survival depended on getting TechFlow's immediate attention. He offered to sign whatever partnership terms we proposed sight unseen if we could start implementation before the end of the year. I gestured for Carlos to sit down while I flipped through the financial analysis his team had prepared. The numbers were staggering. Hartwell Industries employed just over 3,000 people across 2 manufacturing facilities in Washington and Oregon. Their annual revenue had dropped from $200 million to $130 million over the past 3 years, while their operational costs had remained essentially flat. Here's the fascinating part. Carlos continued pulling up a presentation on his laptop. "Their problems are exactly the kind of issues our AI logistics platform was designed to solve. Inventory waste, shipping delays, supplier coordination failures, demand forecasting errors. If we implemented our full system, we could probably save them $60 to $70 million annually, while improving their delivery efficiency by at least 50%. And they don't know this yet. They know their systems are broken, but I don't think they understand how broken or how fixable. Our preliminary analysis suggests that with proper implementation, we could not only save their company, but actually position them to expand significantly, maybe even double their current workforce within 5 years." I set down the financial reports and walked to my windows. Somewhere across the city, probably in a much smaller office with a much less impressive view, William Hartwell was preparing for this meeting. The man who had offered me $18 an hour was about to discover that his company's salvation might depend on the computer repair guy he considered beneath his family's social status. "Carlos, I need to tell you something about this client that might complicate matters." "Oh, William Hartwell is my brother-in-law's father. My sister Sarah is married to his son Tyler." Carlos stared at me for several seconds. "Your family knows you're the CEO of TechFlow, right?" "Actually, no. They think I'm a freelance computer repair technician who can barely pay rent." "You're joking." "I wish I were. In fact, they uninvited me from Christmas dinner yesterday because they were worried I might embarrass them in front of the successful Hartwell family executives." Carlos laughed, then stopped when he realized I was serious. "Braeden, this is insane. How do they not know what you do for a living?" "It's a long story involving some very old family dynamics and my decision to keep my business success private." The point is, William Hartwell is going to walk into this office expecting to meet some unknown CEO, and instead he's going to find his son's brother-in-law, who he thinks is a complete failure. This is either going to be the most satisfying business meeting in history or a complete disaster. Probably both. My intercom buzzed. "Mr. Patterson, your 10 o'clock technical review meeting is here." For the next 2 hours, I met with our development team to review the specific solutions we would propose to Hartwell Industries. The scope was impressive. Our AI-driven inventory management system could reduce their waste by approximately 40% within the first quarter. Our supply chain optimization algorithms could cut their shipping costs by 30%, while improving delivery speed. Most importantly, our demand forecasting models could help them anticipate market changes and adjust production schedules accordingly. The total package would require an initial investment of about $12 million from Hartwell, with implementation taking approximately 18 months. But the return on investment would be dramatic. Within 3 years, they would save enough money to completely modernize their facilities and expand into new markets. "The only question," said Jennifer Walsh, our lead systems architect, "is whether they're financially stable enough to survive the implementation period. Companies this close to bankruptcy sometimes can't manage the short-term disruption that comes with major system overhauls." "That's where our phased approach comes in," I replied. "We implement the highest impact changes first, generating immediate savings that fund the next phase. It's riskier for us because we don't get full payment up front, but it's designed specifically for companies in financial distress." At 12:30, Amanda knocked on my door. "Mr. Patterson, the Hartwell Industries team will be here at 3. Mr. William Hartwell, Mr. Tyler Hartwell, and 2 of their senior managers. Should I prepare the main conference room? Actually, let's meet here in my office. It's more intimate, and I think this conversation is going to require a personal touch." "Of course. Can I bring them anything coffee, water, lunch?" "Coffee would be good. And Amanda, this meeting might get a little unusual. If things seem tense or confusing, just go with it." "Understood, sir." I spent the next hour reviewing every detail of Hartwell Industries' situation. Their company had been founded in 1978 by William's father, starting as a small parts manufacturer for Boeing and other aerospace companies. Over the decades, they had expanded into general manufacturing, producing everything from industrial equipment to consumer appliances. The problem was that they had never invested in modern technology. While their competitors had automated their processes and implemented sophisticated logistics systems, Hartwell Industries still relied on manual inventory tracking and paper-based supply chain management. Their manufacturing equipment was efficient, but not networked, meaning they had no real-time data about production capacity or quality control. In today's economy, that kind of operational blindness was a death sentence. Companies that couldn't adapt quickly to supply chain disruptions, changing consumer demands, or raw material price fluctuations simply couldn't compete. Hartwell Industries was dying a slow death, and based on their desperation to meet with TechFlow, William was finally beginning to understand the severity of their situation. At 2:45, I straightened my tie and checked my appearance in the private bathroom attached to my office. Custom-tailored navy suit, from a downtown Seattle tailor, Italian leather shoes, Swiss watch that cost more than most people's cars. I looked exactly like what I was, a successful technology executive who had built an empire from scratch. In about 15 minutes, William Hartwell would walk into my office expecting to meet a stranger who might save his company. Instead, he would come face to face with the man he considered too much of a failure to join his family for Christmas dinner. I settled into my leather chair and waited for the collision. At exactly 3 o'clock, Amanda's voice came through my intercom. "Mr. Patterson, your guests from Hartwell Industries have arrived. Please show them in." I stood behind my desk, hands clasped professionally, watching the door to my corner office. The afternoon sun streaming through the windows created a backlit silhouette effect that would make it difficult for visitors to see my face clearly until they were fully inside the room. The door opened, and Amanda stepped aside to let 4 men enter. William Hartwell led the group, wearing an expensive gray suit that couldn't quite hide the stress lines around his eyes. Tyler followed immediately behind him, looking nervous, in a way I had never seen during family gatherings. Behind them came 2 older executives I didn't recognize, probably senior managers trying to save their jobs. "Gentlemen," I said in my most professional voice, "welcome to TechFlow Solutions. Please have a seat." William took 3 steps into the room before his eyes adjusted to the lighting and focused on my face. His expression shifted from polite business anticipation to confusion, then recognition, then something approaching panic. "You," he said, stopping dead in his tracks. "You're the computer repair guy, Sarah's brother." Tyler stepped up beside his father, squinting at me with the same dawning realization. "Braeden, what are you doing here? Are you like an assistant or something?" I gestured toward the chairs arranged in front of my desk. "I'm the CEO of TechFlow Solutions. Please sit down so we can discuss your partnership proposal." William's face went through several color changes, settling on an unhealthy pale shade. His eyes moved from me to the Fortune magazine cover hanging on the wall behind my desk. The photograph showed me shaking hands with the Secretary of Commerce at a White House technology summit with the headline, "The AI Revolution: How Young Entrepreneurs Are Reshaping American Industry." "That's impossible," William said, his voice rising. "That's absolutely impossible. Sarah told us you fix computers for $25 an hour. She said you're behind on your rent and you don't even own a car that runs properly." "Sarah has an active imagination," I replied, maintaining perfect composure. "Now, regarding your company's financial situation, my team has prepared a comprehensive analysis of your operational challenges and potential solutions." "This is some kind of joke," William continued, his voice getting louder. "Some kind of elaborate prank. You're not a CEO. You're a failed computer technician who couldn't even afford a decent suit for my son's wedding." Tyler was staring at me with his mouth slightly open. "Braeden, I don't understand. You work on laptops. You complained about a customer who wouldn't pay you $50 just last month at Sunday dinner." "Actually, Tyler, I haven't been to Sunday dinner in over a year. But let's focus on why you're here. Hartwell Industries is approximately 18 months away from bankruptcy, unless you implement immediate operational reforms." William started pacing back and forth in front of my desk. "This is insane. Sarah specifically told me that her brother was a deadbeat. She said you've never held a steady job and you have no business experience whatsoever." One of the senior managers cleared his throat. "Mr. Hartwell, should we perhaps reschedule this meeting? There seems to be some personal confusion." "No," William snapped. "I want to understand what kind of scam this is. How did you get access to this office? Are you impersonating someone?" I walked around my desk and picked up my business card holder, removing 4 cards and placing them on the conference table. "William Tyler, gentlemen, these are my business cards. TechFlow Solutions has been operating for 7 years. We currently serve clients including Amazon, Tesla, Walmart, and about 60 other Fortune 500 companies. Our AI logistics platform typically reduces supply chain costs by 30 to 60%, while improving delivery efficiency by up to 50%. Tyler picked up one of the business cards, reading it carefully. "Braeden Patterson, Chief Executive Officer. But this doesn't make sense. You drive that old Toyota. You live in that apartment near the university. You always complain about money." "I drive different cars depending on the occasion, Tyler, and I maintain several residences for various purposes." William had stopped pacing and was now staring at the wall display behind my desk. In addition to the Fortune cover, there were framed awards from the Seattle Chamber of Commerce, a photo of me, with the governor discussing technology policy, and a letter of commendation from the Department of Defense for TechFlow's contributions to military logistics optimization. "How long?" William asked quietly. How long have you been running this company?" 7 years. We started small and grew steadily. Last year, our revenue was approximately $400 million. The second senior manager, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Sir, if this is accurate, TechFlow Solutions is exactly the kind of partner we've been seeking. Their reputation in the industry is exceptional. Reputation? William's voice cracked slightly. TechFlow has revolutionized supply chain management for traditional manufacturing companies, the manager continued. They're considered the gold standard for AI implementation in industrial settings. Getting a partnership with them would be like winning the lottery for a company in our situation. William collapsed into one of the chairs, looking suddenly much older than his 60-some years. Sarah said you were a failure. She said you had no ambition and no business skills. She said you were an embarrassment to the family. Sarah sees what she wants to see, I replied. Now, shall we discuss your company's immediate need for operational modernization? Or would you prefer to continue this personal conversation? Tyler finally found his voice again. Braeden, why didn't you ever tell us? Why did you let us think you were struggling? When did you ever ask? When did anyone in the family show interest in my actual life, rather than the version you preferred to believe? But the money, Tyler said, if you're really if this is all real, why do you live like you're broke when you visit? Because I learned a long time ago that my family was more comfortable with me as a failure than as a success. It was easier to maintain that illusion than to deal with the complicated emotions that come with truth. William was shaking his head slowly. This changes everything. Everything Sarah told us about you, everything we believed. If you're really the CEO here, if this company is really worth what you're saying, what it changes, William, is your company's survival prospects. TechFlow can save Hartwell Industries, but only if we can work together professionally, despite whatever personal issues exist between our families. Personal issues. Tyler looked confused. Tyler, your family uninvited me from Christmas dinner because they were worried I would embarrass them in front of important executives. Yesterday, Sarah called to make sure I understood that my presence would be inappropriate around successful people like your father. The silence in the room was profound. William's face had gone from pale to flushed, and he appeared to be struggling with some kind of internal crisis. Finally, he stood up abruptly. We need to reschedule this meeting. I need time to process this information and discuss it with my family. Of course, I replied professionally. Amanda can coordinate with your schedules. However, I should mention that we have several other potential partnerships under consideration, and our implementation calendar fills up quickly. Are you threatening us? William asked. I'm providing information about our business constraints. TechFlow partners with companies based on strategic fit and mutual benefit, not personal relationships. If Hartwell Industries isn't ready to move forward professionally, we'll focus our attention on clients who are. Tyler stood up beside his father. Braeden, I had no idea. I'm sorry if we misunderstood your situation. Apology noted, Tyler. Let me know when you're ready to discuss business. After they left, I sat alone in my office for several minutes, watching the afternoon light shift across the Seattle skyline. My phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. Tyler just called me screaming. What did you do? I set the phone aside without responding. The collision I had been anticipating for 5 years had finally happened. Now the question was whether my family would choose business necessity or social pride. Either way, TechFlow Solutions would be fine. We had plenty of other potential partners who wouldn't bring personal drama to professional relationships. But I had to admit the look on William's face when he realized who I was had been worth 5 years of keeping secrets. By 6 o'clock that evening, I was still in my office reviewing quarterly projections when Amanda knocked on my door. Mr. Patterson, there are 2 people here to see you. They don't have an appointment, but they say it's urgent family business, Sarah and Tyler Hartwell. Send them in. Sarah stormed through my office door like a hurricane, her carefully styled blonde hair slightly disheveled and her usually perfect makeup showing signs of stress. Tyler followed behind her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. What the hell is this place? Sarah demanded, spinning around to take in my corner office. Tyler says you're some kind of CEO, but that's impossible. You fix computers. Hello, Sarah. Please have a seat. I am not sitting down until you explain what kind of game you're playing. Tyler's father had some kind of attack after your meeting today. He's been hyperventilating and talking nonsense about you being on magazine covers. Tyler stepped forward, wringing his hands. Braeden, my dad is really shaken up. He keeps saying that everything he believed about our family was wrong. He's talking about resigning from the company and letting me handle the partnership negotiations. But I don't understand what's happening. Sarah walked to the wall behind my desk and stared at the Fortune magazine cover. This is photoshopped or something? This is fake. Sarah, that's a real magazine from last year. But you don't have any money. You drive that horrible car and you live in that apartment, and you're always complaining about bills. I drive different cars for different occasions, and I maintain several properties. She whirled around to face me. Several properties. What does that even mean? It means I own a penthouse in downtown Seattle, a vacation home in the San Juan Islands, and I maintain a modest apartment near the university for family visits. For family visits, why would you… The realization hit her mid-sentence. Her face went through the same color changes I had seen with William earlier. You've been lying to us. For years, you've been pretending to be poor. Actually, I've never lied about anything. I just never corrected your assumptions. That's the same thing. When did you ever ask about my business? When did you ever show interest in my actual life? Tyler sat down heavily in one of the chairs. Braeden, this doesn't make sense. At our wedding, you sat in the back corner and barely talked to anyone. You looked like you couldn't afford to be there. I looked like someone who was tired of performing failure for his family's comfort. Sarah's voice was getting shrill. Performance? What performance? You complained about a customer who wouldn't pay you $50. You asked Mom if you could borrow money for Christmas presents. Sarah, I haven't been to a family dinner in over a year, and I have never borrowed money from Mom for anything. But Tyler heard you. He was there. Tyler shook his head slowly. Sarah, I think you might be mixing up conversations. I don't remember Braeden asking to borrow money. Of course he did, and he was complaining about his landlord raising his rent. When was this? It was at… Sarah stopped, confusion clouding her features. Tyler was staring at his wife with growing concern. Sarah, honey, some of the things you told my family about Braeden, I'm not sure they actually happened. What are you talking about? I told them the truth. About his computer repair business and his financial problems and his relationship issues. What relationship issues? I asked. How you can never keep a girlfriend because you're too immature and irresponsible. Sarah, I've been in a committed relationship with Dr. Christine Morrison for 2 years. She's a pediatric surgeon at Seattle Children's Hospital. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Because you're… She gestured vaguely at me, struggling to find words. Tyler stood up and walked to the windows overlooking downtown Seattle. Sarah, I think we need to talk about this privately. But first, Braeden, I need to ask you something directly. Is your company really capable of saving Hartwell Industries? Absolutely. Your operational inefficiencies are costing you approximately $15 million per quarter. Our AI logistics platform can eliminate most of that waste while improving your production capacity. But the implementation requires significant upfront investment and about 18 months of systematic changes. And if we don't do it, you'll be bankrupt by next summer, maybe sooner if there's another supply chain disruption like the ones we've seen over the past few years. Tyler rubbed his face with both hands. 3,000 people work for our company, Braeden. If we fail, they all lose their jobs. I'm aware of the employment impact. So what happens now after today's disaster, I mean? That depends on whether you can separate business from family drama. TechFlow partners with companies that are ready to commit fully to technological transformation. We don't work with clients who might let personal issues interfere with professional decisions. Sarah had been quiet during this exchange, but now she exploded. Personal issues. You're the one who lied to us for years. You let us believe you were struggling while you were secretly some kind of millionaire. Sarah, what would have changed if you had known the truth about my business? Everything would have changed. We would have treated you differently. Exactly. You would have treated me differently based on my money rather than who I am as a person. That's not fair. Isn't it yesterday you called to make sure I understood that I wasn't good enough to attend Christmas dinner because your in-laws only associate with successful people? Today, Tyler's father had a medical episode because he discovered that the person he considered beneath his social status might be his company's only chance for survival. Tyler collapsed back into his chair. Oh, God. Yesterday's conversation? What we said about Christmas? What about Christmas? Sarah asked. Sarah, we told Braeden he couldn't come to dinner because he would embarrass us in front of my family. We said he wasn't successful enough to meet my parents. But he wasn't. We didn't know he was… Sarah's voice trailed off as the full impact hit her. You disinvited your own brother from Christmas because you thought he was poor, Tyler said quietly. We were protecting our family's reputation. By excluding your family? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Sarah stared at the fortune cover again, then at me, then back at the magazine. How much money do you actually have? She asked finally. Enough. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're going to get. My personal finances aren't your business, Sarah. Tyler's phone buzzed, and he checked the message. It's my dad. He wants to know if we can schedule another meeting this week. He says the company can't afford to lose this opportunity regardless of personal complications. Tell him to call Amanda tomorrow. She'll coordinate our schedules. And the family situation? Tyler asked. How do we handle Christmas and everything else? I looked at Sarah, who was still staring at the wall display with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sarah, sir, I said you have a choice to make. You can continue building your identity around my supposed failures, or you can accept that your brother built something meaningful with his life. But you can't have both. I need time to think, she said quietly. Take all the time you need, but understand that your thinking time is happening while Tyler's company slides toward bankruptcy, and 3,000 employees wonder if they'll have jobs next year. After they left, I called David, my chief operating officer, to brief him on the situation. So let me get this straight, David said. The client who desperately needs our services to avoid bankruptcy spent today discovering that their son's brother-in-law, who they consider a social embarrassment, is actually the CEO of the company they're begging to save them. That's an accurate summary. And your sister has been telling everyone that you're a failure for years. Also accurate. Braeden, this is either the best revenge story I've ever heard or the most complicated business ethics situation we've ever faced. It's probably both. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what I always do, David. I'm going to make the best business decision for TechFlow and our employees. If Hartwell Industries can commit to the partnership professionally, we'll save their company. If they can't, we'll work with someone who can. And your family? My family is going to have to decide whether they want a relationship with me or a relationship with their fantasy version of me. They can't have both anymore. That night, I sat in my penthouse apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, drinking a glass of wine and thinking about Christmas dinner. For the first time in 5 years, I might actually be invited. The question was whether I wanted to go. By Wednesday morning, the situation had spiraled beyond anything I could have anticipated. Amanda handed me a stack of messages when I arrived at the office, all related to the Hartwell family crisis. Mr. Patterson, your phone has been ringing constantly since 7 a.m. Your sister called 6 times, your mother called 4 times, and someone named Frank called 3 times, using what I can only describe as increasingly desperate language. Frank is my father. He asked me to tell you that there's been a family emergency and you need to call home immediately. I flipped through the message slips. Sarah had called at 7:15, 7:38, 8:25, 8:45, and 9:10. The tone of her messages, according to Amanda's notes, had progressed from angry to confused to panicked. There's more, Amanda continued. Mr. William Hartwell was hospitalized yesterday evening with what his doctors are calling a stress-induced cardiac episode. He's stable, but his family is requesting an emergency meeting to discuss the partnership terms. Who's requesting the meeting? Tyler Hartwell and someone named James Morrison, who apparently serves on their board of directors. Morrison. That was an interesting development. Amanda, do me a favor and see if James Morrison is related to Dr. Christine Morrison at Seattle Children's Hospital. Of course, sir. My intercom buzzed almost immediately. Mr. Patterson, it's Dr. Morrison on line 1. She says it's personal. I picked up the phone. Christine. Braeden, what in the world is going on? My Uncle James called me at midnight, asking if I knew that my boyfriend was the CEO of TechFlow Solutions. Christine and I had been together for 2 years, and she was one of the few people outside of work who knew everything about my family situation. She had attended exactly one family gathering, with me pretending to believe that I was a struggling computer repair technician for the evening. Your uncle is on the board at Hartwell Industries. He's been their outside financial advisor for 15 years. He's also been trying to convince them to modernize their operations for the past 5 years. When they told him they had a meeting scheduled with TechFlow, he nearly fell off his chair. And he knows about us. I may have mentioned that I was dating someone named Braeden who worked in technology. I didn't think the connection was relevant. It's relevant now. Your uncle's company is about 18 months away from bankruptcy. I know. He's been worried sick about it. Braeden, what happened in that meeting on Monday? James said William Hartwell was incoherent when he got home. William discovered that the failed family member he considers socially embarrassing is the CEO of the company he desperately needs to save his business. Oh my God, this is like something out of a movie. It gets better. My family uninvited me from Christmas dinner because they were worried I would embarrass them in front of the successful Hartwell executives. Christine was quiet for several seconds. Braeden, that's awful. I'm so sorry. It's actually kind of liberating. 5 years of pretending to be poor so my family could feel comfortable, and it turns out they prefer me as a failure anyway. What are you going to do about the business situation? I'm going to save their company if they can handle it professionally, but I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not anymore. And your family? My family is going to have to decide what kind of relationship they actually want. After I hung up, Amanda brought me another message. Mr. Patterson, your mother called again. She sounded quite upset. She wanted me to tell you that your father is having chest pains from stress, and she needs you to call home right away. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. Frank had been claiming heart problems for as long as I could remember whenever he wanted to control a family situation. But Tyler called at 11 with genuine panic in his voice. Braeden, I need to be honest with you about something. My father isn't just having stress problems. When he found out who you really were, he started talking about resigning from the company immediately. He says he can't face the humiliation of having misjudged the situation so badly. Tyler, business decisions shouldn't be based on personal embarrassment. I know, but there's more. Word has gotten out in their social circles about what happened. Someone from your company apparently mentioned to someone else that the Hartwell meeting involved family connections, and now it's all over the country club. What exactly is all over the country club? That Sarah has been lying about her brother's success for years. That William offered an entry-level job to a Fortune 500 CEO. That our family uninvited you from Christmas dinner the day before your company could save ours from bankruptcy. The poetic justice was beautiful, but I could hear the genuine distress in Tyler's voice. Tyler, how much of this story is accurate versus embellished gossip poured down? Most of it is accurate, which makes it worse. Sarah is devastated. She's been getting calls and texts from friends asking why she never mentioned that her brother was successful. Some of them are being cruel about it. What kind of cruel? Asking if she was ashamed of having a successful brother, wondering out loud why someone would lie about their family's accomplishments. One of her book club friends suggested that maybe Sarah was jealous of your success. And how is Sarah handling this? Not well. She hasn't left the house since Tuesday. She keeps saying that everyone thinks she's a liar and that her reputation is ruined. What about the business situation? That's why I'm calling. James Morrison wants to meet with you directly to discuss terms. He says he can speak for the company without my father's involvement until Dad is feeling better. And you're comfortable with that arrangement? Braeden, I'm comfortable with whatever keeps 3,000 people employed. This isn't about family pride anymore. It's about survival. Amanda appeared in my doorway holding another stack of messages. Mr. Patterson, the Seattle Business Journal called. They want to interview you about TechFlow's partnership with Hartwell Industries. Apparently, someone leaked information about the family connection, and they think it's an interesting human interest angle. Tell them no comment for now. Also, your sister is here. She's quite upset and asking to speak with you immediately. Send her in. Sarah entered my office looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, and her eyes were red from crying. Braeden, you have to help me, she said without preamble. Everyone knows. Everyone knows I lied about you, and they're all talking about it. What exactly are they saying? That I was jealous of your success, so I made up stories about you being poor. That I was so insecure about my own accomplishments that I had to tear down my own brother. That I'm the kind of person who would lie about family to make herself look better. And how much of that is true? Sarah collapsed into a chair and started crying. I don't know, maybe all of it. I don't understand why I did what I did. For the first time since this whole situation started, I felt genuine sympathy for my sister. Sarah, why did you tell people I was struggling? Because when you were in college, you were always the smart one. The one with big ideas and ambitious plans. Mom and Dad were always worried about you, but they were also proud of you. And I was just ordinary. You're not ordinary, Sarah. Compared to you, I am. You got into Stanford. You studied computer science. You talked about changing the world with technology. And I got a communications degree from a state school and married the first guy who seemed like he could provide a stable life. There's nothing wrong with wanting stability, but there's nothing special about it either. And when Tyler and I started dating, his family was so impressed with their own success. They kept talking about building legacies and making impacts and contributing to society. I felt like I had nothing to offer except being pretty and agreeable. So you made me the failure to make yourself look better by comparison? I think so. If my brother was struggling, then my stable marriage and comfortable life looked like success. But if my brother was building an empire while I was planning dinner parties and shopping for furniture, then what did that make me? It was the most honest conversation Sarah and I had ever had. Sarah's success isn't a competition between siblings. I know that now, but I didn't know it then. And once I started telling the stories, I couldn't take them back without admitting I had been lying. So what do you want from me now? I want you to forgive me. And I want you to save Tyler's family's company because even though they treated you badly, they're good people who made a mistake. And what about Christmas dinner? Sarah looked up at me with swollen eyes. I want you to come to Christmas dinner as yourself, as the successful, accomplished person you actually are. I want to be proud of my brother instead of pretending he doesn't exist. It was a start. But before we could rebuild our family relationships, I had to decide whether TechFlow would partner with a company whose survival depended on getting past years of personal deception. The business decision was easy. The family decision was much more complicated. Friday afternoon, I called a meeting in TechFlow's main conference room. Present were James Morrison representing Hartwell Industries Board, Tyler Hartwell, Christine Morrison, Carlos Rodriguez, from my business development team and myself. William had been discharged from the hospital, but requested that Tyler handle the negotiations, acknowledging that his personal emotional investment was interfering with sound business judgment. Before we discuss partnership terms, I began, I want to make sure everyone understands the situation clearly. Hartwell Industries needs immediate operational modernization to survive. TechFlow can provide that modernization, but it requires significant financial commitment and systematic changes over 18 months. Success depends on full cooperation from Hartwell's management team and board. James Morrison nodded. Mr. Patterson, I've reviewed your preliminary analysis, and frankly, it's the most comprehensive operational assessment we've ever received. Your team identified problems that we've been struggling with for years without understanding the root causes. The problems are solvable, but only if everyone commits to the solution. Tyler leaned forward. Braeden, I need to ask directly. Can you separate the business decision from the family issues? Because if there's any chance that personal feelings might affect TechFlow's commitment to our success, we need to know now. Tyler, I've been separating business from family for my entire career. The question is whether you can do the same. What do you mean? I mean that if we partner with Hartwell Industries, you'll be working directly with your wife's brother, who you now know is significantly more successful than your family initially believed. Some people find that dynamic challenging. Christine spoke up. From a neutral perspective, this partnership makes sense for both companies. Uncle James has been trying to convince Hartwell to modernize for years. TechFlow specializes in exactly the kind of transformation they need. The personal connections are irrelevant to the business case. Except that they're not irrelevant, I said. Personal relationships affect professional dynamics, whether we acknowledge it or not. If Tyler feels uncomfortable working with me, or if William continues to struggle with the situation, it will impact our ability to implement successfully. James Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Patterson, may I speak candidly? Of course. I've been advising this company for 15 years. I've watched them resist modernization for far too long, partly because William believed that traditional business relationships and personal connections were more important than technological innovation. This situation, awkward as it is, might be exactly the wake-up call they needed. How so? William has spent years making business decisions based on social comfort rather than strategic value. He hired vendors because he liked them, personally maintained supplier relationships that were costing him money because he didn't want to hurt feelings, and avoided necessary changes because they felt too impersonal or complex. Tyler looked uncomfortable with this assessment but didn't argue. The fact that his son's brother-in-law, whom he dismissed as unimportant, turns out to be exactly the business partner he needs is poetic justice. But more than that, it's educational. If William can learn from this experience, he might become a better executive. If he can't, then he should probably step aside and let Tyler run the company. And what's your recommendation, James? My recommendation is that we move forward with the partnership immediately. Hartwell Industries can't afford to let pride interfere with survival. And frankly, TechFlow would be doing us a favor by accepting our business, given how badly we mishandled the initial approach. I looked at Tyler. What do you think? I think Uncle James is right. Our company needs what TechFlow offers, regardless of family complications. And personally, I'd rather work with someone I know than with strangers, even if the relationship is complicated. Carlos had been taking notes throughout this conversation. Mr. Patterson, if we're moving forward, we should discuss implementation timeline. The sooner we start, the more money we can save Hartwell Industries before their next quarterly review. Agreed? Tyler, are you prepared to commit to the full 18-month implementation process? It's going to require significant changes in how your company operates, including replacing some longtime employees who can't adapt to new systems. I understand. We're committed to whatever it takes. And your father? Tyler hesitated. Dad is processing the situation, but he's agreed to support whatever decisions I make regarding company operations. Then let's move forward. Over the next 2 hours, we hammered out the partnership terms. TechFlow would implement our AI logistics platform in phases starting with inventory management and supply chain optimization. Hartwell Industries would invest $12 million up front, with additional payments tied to performance benchmarks. If everything went according to plan, they would save approximately $60 million over the next 3 years while positioning themselves for significant expansion. But beyond the business agreement, we also established personal boundaries. Tyler and I would maintain professional relationships during working hours and family relationships during family time with clear separation between the two contexts. If conflicts arose, James Morrison would serve as an independent mediator to protect both the business partnership and family harmony. As everyone prepared to leave, Tyler approached me privately. "Braeden, I owe you an apology that goes beyond business. We treated you badly, and we were wrong. Tyler, you treated me exactly the way Sarah told you to treat me. You can't apologize for believing information you had no reason to doubt. But I could have made my own judgments. I could have gotten to know you better instead of just accepting Sarah's version of who you were. That's fair. What happens now, with Christmas and family stuff? That depends on whether people want to build relationships based on reality instead of fantasy. I'm willing if everyone else is. And Sarah needs to figure out who she wants to be going forward. She can't build her identity around other people's failures anymore." Tyler nodded. "She's been talking to a therapist about why she felt the need to compete with her own brother. It's been eye-opening for both of us." "Good. Competition between family members is usually a symptom of deeper insecurity issues." "Braeden, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why did you keep the secret for so long? Why not just tell us the truth about your success?" I considered the question carefully, because I learned early that my family was more comfortable with me as a project to fix than as a person to celebrate. It was easier to be the struggling brother who needed advice than the successful brother who might make everyone else feel inadequate. But that must have been lonely. It was incredibly lonely, but it was also protective. I didn't have to worry about whether people loved me for my money or for myself because nobody knew about the money. And now I'm willing to risk people loving me for the wrong reasons because hiding who I am turned out to be more damaging than revealing who I am. Tyler extended his hand for a handshake. Partners in business and in family. Christmas dinner that year was held at my penthouse apartment. Carol marveled at the view of Elliott Bay, while Frank awkwardly asked questions about TechFlow's technology. Sarah brought homemade cookies as an apology gesture, and William, looking much healthier after his hospital scare, spent most of the evening asking thoughtful questions about business strategy. Christine fit naturally into the group, and her medical stories provided neutral conversation topics when family dynamics got tense. Tyler and I discussed the Hartwell implementation progress, but mostly we just enjoyed being together without pretense or performance. During dinner, Frank raised his wine glass for a toast. To Braeden for reminding us that success comes in many forms, and family means supporting each other's dreams instead of limiting them. It wasn't a perfect Christmas, but it was honest. Sarah still struggled with comparing herself to others, but she was working on building her own identity instead of defining herself in opposition to mine. William had become genuinely interested in learning about technology and was proving to be surprisingly adaptable for someone in his 60s. Tyler had discovered that running a company was more fulfilling than inheriting one, and he threw himself into the modernization process with unexpected enthusiasm. 6 months later, Hartwell Industries had reduced their operational costs by 45% and increased their production efficiency by 30%. They hired 800 new employees and began expanding into new markets for the first time in a decade. The TechFlow partnership became a model for traditional industry digital transformation, and we received inquiries from manufacturing companies across the country. But more importantly, my family learned something valuable about the difference between supporting someone's dreams and trying to manage their limitations. Frank started asking about my business goals instead of warning me about impractical ambitions. Carol began introducing me as her son, the CEO, instead of her son who needed prayer for direction. Sarah discovered that celebrating other people's successes didn't diminish her own accomplishments. The most profound change was in my own understanding of success and family. I realized that hiding my achievements hadn't protected me from judgment. It had just postponed the necessary conversations about acceptance and authenticity. True success isn't about what you build or how much money you make. It's about staying true to your values while maintaining compassion for people who are still learning and growing. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. My family's inability to see my success earlier had more to do with their own insecurities than with any failing on my part. Once they began addressing those insecurities, they became capable of more honest and supportive relationships. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give people is the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. My family thought they were protecting themselves by maintaining illusions about my life, but those illusions were actually preventing them from experiencing the joy of genuine connection and shared celebration. The Christmas text that had seemed so painful turned out to be the catalyst for the most important conversations my family had ever had. Sometimes being excluded from where you don't belong is the first step toward finding where you do belong. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing love and understanding over resentment and isolation. It's about believing that people can grow and change and become better versions of themselves if you give them the opportunity. My name is Braeden Patterson, and this is my story about family success and the courage it takes to be authentically yourself in a world that often prefers comfortable lies to challenging truths. What's the most important lesson your family has taught you about success and authenticity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to support authentic storytelling. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your true path. And share this with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's understanding of their value. Thank you for listening, and remember that your authentic self is always worth more than any performance you might feel pressured to maintain. Until next time, keep building something meaningful.